Alright guys, I have a brand new life story for you. This one's gonna be about the time I broke through the ice. A very interesting life story, if I do say so myself, because there's several parts that make this story even worse than it already is. Maybe that's a good word for it. Alright, let me take you back to that day. I was probably in fourth or fifth grade, maybe younger. I'm not too sure. I have no idea how old I was. I know I was younger. It was probably around the third, fourth grade era. It was definitely during the winter time. So it was winter break, and you go out for Christmas. You got your good 2 or 3 weeks off. That's what I was looking at, right? I went over to a family member's house that I've probably only been over there twice, right? And this makes one of them. I think this is the first time, and I was over there, and I was used to, like, hopping on the Xbox and playing Destroy All Humans or what have you. And he didn't have an Xbox. He didn't have a PlayStation. He didn't really game. I don't even think he had a TV. And I was like, "Yo, what do you do for fun?" He's like, "I don't know, just hop on the Gator and drive around." I was like, "The Gator? What's a Gator?" And that was the day I found out what a John Deere Gator was, which is awesome, especially at that time. Very cool piece of technology or machinery that was at my fingertips, right? So what did we do? We hopped out on the Gator, and why in the world, man? My laptop's fan just kicked up. If you guys can hear that, my bad. I hope that I can video edit it out, or audio engineer it out. But we hopped on the Gator, right? It was definitely below freezing point. It was in the tens or 15s. It was in the tens or teens. Temperature outside, and that's Fahrenheit, by the way. So we go out, right? We're riding around. I'm like, man, this is fun. It is so cold. Like, the wind's right in your face. There's no wind guard, and I'm riding, and I'm like, man, I want to drive this. So we drove it. I was driving it, and I went out across this, like, piece of ice. Right? It was a dense piece of ice on the ground, out in the grass, and I got on it and I slammed the brakes on, and we are twisting and turning. Next thing I know, the wheel pops in, right? The wheel pops in, and we hear, like, go, like, just kind of down. It was such a small little puddle of water that was extremely frozen. We were actually able to get out of that, right? We were able to get out of it with the Gator. It powered right through. So we keep going, and I'm like, all right, man, I've had my fun. You can drive this thing. Take us to somewhere cool, right? Take me to your spot. And, he took me to this one spot before, the worst of it. He took me to this one spot, which was basically like a container that had an opening. I don't know I don't know what it was made for or what it's used for, but if I could give you, like, maybe it was about 15 feet wide and probably about 8 foot tall in the ground, right? And there was, like, a little opening at the top. And he went over to that little opening, and he took this lid off that had, like, earth on top of it. So it was like, if you looked on the field, you would not be able to tell this where it was. He just knew where it was. He goes off, takes the lid off, and he's like, "Hop in, man." I was like, "Okay." And I hopped in. There was some chairs and a table down there. I'm like, "This is awesome. This is like an underground fortress." He's like, "Yeah, I always come here. This is all." I was like, "Man, I've got to get one of these containers at my house. How do I get this container?" So we're down there, right? And I'm like, how do you get out? I'm looking up at this hole. I'm young, I'm not that tall. I'm probably like 4 feet. I'm like, "How do you get out?" He's like, "Oh, I forgot the rope." I'm like, "You forgot the rope? What?" So there's, like, rope attached to the top that's, like, curled up underneath where the lid would be, and he's supposed to throw it down until you get down. And so we're stuck, right? We're in here in this hole for like 40 minutes, and, like, he's standing on top of my shoulders getting out, and he's, like, lifting me out. That was an ordeal trying to get out, right? So I'm pretty much done with the woods at that point. I'm like, I'm ready to go back in. I'm missing my video games. I was stuck in a hole. It was a pretty cool hole, but I was stuck there. And he's like, "Man, I got one more place to go. If you think of that ice was something, you'll love this." So we went out to this, like, lake, right? It was pretty big. It's not the largest lake I've ever seen, and it's not the smallest. But we got on it, and he's driving around. He's just whipping it around. We're drifting. I'm like, "Whoa, this is so cool. How can it hold the weight?" And he's like, it does it all the time. It does it every year. And he's like, it's cold enough today. That's why we're out here on it. And I'm like, this is kind of sketchy. He's like, no, man, it's fine. Get out and walk on it. That's pretty cool too. Man, you know what? As soon as I hopped out of the Gator, my foot went straight through the ice, right into that icy cold water, and my entire leg was soaked. The boot was soaked, the leg was soaked, the jeans was soaked. I'm like, man, we gotta go home. On the entire ride there, my frozen leg, right, the leg that dipped through the hole, it was freezing. I could feel just the coldness, and we got back, and he's like, yeah, wait outside. I don't think my mom wants your wet foot all over the house. I'm sitting outside for like 10 minutes with my frozen leg. And then his mom just comes out there and she's like, "What are you doing out here? Why are you doing it?" She's freaking out, right? She's like, "You're gonna lose that leg." But I'll tell you, man, I got the hot towels and just warmed that leg up. Everything was fine. I still got the leg today, if you guys were wondering. But that was a pretty crazy experience. A lot of cool things happened that one day from one John Deere Gator, and I've never been in one since. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video about the John Deere Gator. Peace. Who doesn't want to see their name at the end of every video? Make sure to check out the Patreon link in the description if you would like to be a part of the club.